Now it is the end of the week and time to look back at the top business stories. We have our editor-at-large, Craig Copetas. He's in Paris. Our senior business producers here, Azhar Sukri in the studio with me and André-Pierre du Plessis in the Istanbul newsroom. Let's begin with the United States, which has ramped up its fight against Daesh in Afghanistan by launching the most powerful weapon in its arsenal, known as the mother of all bombs. Now, Asian stocks reacted negatively to the latest strike, but no reaction from the US and European markets yet, of course, because they're both closed for Easter. The GBU-43B bomb cost more than $300 million to develop, and each costs $16 million, each unit. Well, let's kick off this debate now with Az. Let's start with the market reaction and safe havens. What was the reaction?
Actually, not that much of a reaction overall. I mean, gold, we did see a little bit of a spike up, nearly 1%. You know, S&P, Dow Jones, and the Nasdaq all down a little bit below 1%. The interesting thing, I think, in all of this is that, you know, there has been so much activity going on the geopolitical stage, and the markets really haven't reacted very much at all. We're in one of the lowest volatility environments we've seen in years.
Why do you think that is, Az?
Well, I think there are a number of reasons. A lot of them are technical. One possible reason could be to do with the rise of the exchange-traded fund, for example. It sucks up a lot. It kind of acts as a buffer to volatility. So a lot of technical reasons there.
Let me bring in AP for a moment here to bring in a bit of TV analysis. What's going on in the United States? Are they licking their lips over this?
They are. All the big TV news bosses definitely are. They're getting very excited. First, it was the strike on Syria launched last week, and then this week's bomb in Afghanistan. And the reason why is you need to remember that the whole business model behind 24-hour news, the whole reason for CNN's existence really is because of the first Gulf War. So there's one specific really good example to illustrate this. This was a TV news presenter who works for MSNBC. His name is Brian Williams. Listen to what he had to say when he saw those tomahawks hit Syria.
We see these beautiful pictures at night from the decks of these two U.S. Navy vessels in the Eastern Mediterranean. I am tempted to quote the great Leonard Cohen, "I'm guided by the beauty of our weapons."
Craig, our editor-at-large in Paris, my goodness.
War hath no fury like a non-combatant journalist. It's great ratings. It is made for TV drama. It's an outgrowth of the Vietnam War. And all wars are popular for the first 30 days. What gets the TV people upset is when the body bags start coming home. So far, there's no body bags en masse.
OK, Craig. Now, we started the week with a certain controversy involving Shell. It acquired one of Nigeria's biggest oil fields, the OPL 245, in 2011. And this week, it was accused of being involved in a billion-dollar corruption scheme. Now, in 1998, Nigeria's oil minister at the time, Dan Etete, sold the oil block to Malibu, a company he secretly owned for $20 million. Well, after years of ownership disputes, Shell, with its Italian partner Eni, bought the oil block for about $1.3 billion. $1.1 billion of that went to Etete's Malibu. He's accused of sharing the funds with Nigeria's political elite. Well, this week, after Nigerian authorities filed corruption charges, Shell admitted to knowing funds it paid would reach Etete, who is a convicted money launderer. Az, back to you. What are the consequences for Shell? Who is investigating them?
So right now they are, as you mentioned, facing bribery investigations in Nigeria, but also in Italy. Eni is facing, possibly going to face a probe over there, and Shell is also going to be facing a bribery investigation in the Netherlands. But what's also going to be interesting in all of this is because if a lot of the funds were sent back and forth in US dollars, this might raise the possibility of an investigation in the US as well. So last year, the Securities and Exchange Commission actually tightened the rules on the oil and gas industry in terms of the threshold at which they had to report payments to foreign governments. They reduced that threshold to just $100,000. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the US next.
Craig, let's stay on the corruption theme. Actually, this whole week has stunk of it.
Yeah. Is this our, we're shocked, there's gambling in Casablanca block of money talks? You know, these corruption investigations have been going on, particularly in the oil business, for more than 40 years.
Yeah. It's true.
They take a long time.
Craig, do you
in
your opinion,
there's corruption in Nigeria. Oh my
indeed.
God.
Well, indeed. I mean, the oil and gas industry, isn't it possibly the most corrupt industry in the world, barring the weapons industry?
Well, yeah, of course it is, because there's a lot of money involved. Oil is found in countries that are not known for their democratic procedures. And you take a country, I mean, look at Nigeria, look at Venezuela, look at Brazil. These are extremely wealthy countries in natural resources. But look, after 50 years, nearly half a century, or if not more, of being able to make money off of these resources, look at the country. Nigeria is a cesspool. You know, Nigeria is not an African miracle. Okay. Venezuela is not a Latin American miracle.
Let's move on for a moment
This
now.
is just the way it is.
Another big story that began on Sunday night and continued to dominate the news all week was this video that's been seen all around the world, of course. It shows a bloody passenger being dragged off United Airlines during an overbooked flight. Well, the video didn't only cause irreparable harm to the company's reputation, but led to its stock price underperforming the airline industry by a wide margin. Now, over the span of a week, United stock lost nearly 3% of its value, shaving $569 million off the carrier's market capitalization this week. The CEO, Oscar Munoz, who tried to put out the public relations fire by apologizing multiple times, personally lost about $376,000 from the 200,000 United shares he owns. But global investors, Warren Buffett made perhaps the biggest individual financial loss from the troubles. As one of the company's biggest shareholders, Buffett lost $52 million this week. Let's go back to AP. AP, certainly one of the worst adverts or PR disasters I've seen since social media began, but not the only one.
Yes, it's been a week where three major PR gaffes culminated into one. So last week we spoke about Pepsi, of course, that had a bit of a gaffe. They pulled their TV ad after people criticized it for being insensitive. Then we had this fallout with United. And then the White House spokesperson came out, Sean Spicer, and said that Hitler never used gas against his people. And because of these three different PR gaffes, the internet, being the internet, made them merge, calling it Pepsi United Spicer. I want to read you some tweets to explain what I mean by this, because of course this is what they call a meme. First of all, this is a meme. This is a tweet from Campaign Bear. He said, speaking on behalf of Pepsi, Pepsi says, "We just made the most offensive PR gaffe." United responds, "Hold my Pepsi." And then Sean Spicer pipes in, "Hitler didn't use Pepsi." Another example, this one from Chris Malberger. He photoshopped those three together. He put Spicer into a United plane holding a Pepsi, adding the caption, "If Twitter this past week was a person, here he is." Now, of course, this underscores the importance of social media and how boardrooms just simply can't ignore what happens on Twitter and Facebook.
Okay, let's go back to Craig for a minute. Craig, I asked you a question earlier in the week about passengers' rights and whether this was a case of overboarding and if United had a case here. And you'd, of course, have been speaking to some lawyers. Tell us about that.
Well, it wasn't a case of overbooking. They removed these passengers because they wanted to put employees on. There is a problem with overbooking in the United States globally, and in the U.S., United has the worst overbooking problem. But again, this was not an overbooking issue. So what this has done is it has created, through the social media, a real awareness of this problem.
Right.
And there's going to be congressional investigations, and it looks like they're going to start changing the rules.
And let me bring in Azhar now. Azhar, what about the passenger himself and his lawsuit?
Exactly. Now, this is going to be the most interesting part, because ultimately, guys, this is what it boils down to, is whether it's legal for airlines to kick people off their planes. Now, the lawyer representing Dr. David Gow, the man who was kicked off the flight had this to say.
We have to figure out, United has to figure out, the airline industry has to figure out, what do? We take money from people, we let them sit on the airplane, seat-belted. Are we really going to just start taking them off then?
Well, that was the week that was. Let's go round again and find out what's on your radar for next week. Craig, over to you.
Yeah, French elections, as of right now, it looks to be a four-way tie between Le Pen, Macron, Fillon, and the communist Mélenchon. Stay tuned.
My goodness. Azhar?
China first quarter GDP numbers out on Monday. Interesting to see whether they're going to be able to engineer this soft landing that they're hoping for. 6.5% plus growth being looked at in China there for the first quarter.
And AP?
It's a big week for U.S. earnings, starting with United Continental. We'll see how they perform Monday morning.
OK, AP, Craig and Azhar, thank you so much for your contributions.